Hello and good afternoon everybody, and welcome back once again for another video of DIY investing. Today I wanted to switch things up a little bit and talk about an asset group that really doesn't get talked a whole lot about. Today we're going to be diving into the world of stocks. One thing I've wanted to talk to you guys about for a while now is the fact that I do believe that the stock market is ready to top out, and I do believe that we are very overvalued in a number of these different stocks. Now, I strongly believe that if and when the stock market starts to top out, that money has to go somewhere, and it seems to me to believe that Bitcoin is going to be a perfect asset for all of that old money to kind of trickle down into. In the wake of a stock market crash, I believe that commodities are going to perform very well. With the wake of the recent Iran missile attacks that were taking place, Bitcoin actually performed very well with gold and silver and oil. And that's a very good sign that says that if there is a lot of uncertainty inside of the markets, whether it's a stock market crash, whether it's war, whatever it might be, Bitcoin is going to be taking a lot of that value. And I do believe with Bitcoin being such an undervalued asset class, with the stock market topping out, I strongly believe that money will enter Bitcoin's market and could very easily send us into a very parabolic cycle. If you're new and just finding this channel, make sure you guys leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more updates. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss out on any updates that I post like the one in this video. If you guys are looking to profit alongside next to me and practice portfolio management based off of my own cues, you guys are definitely going to want to check out my Signal service that I offer on Discord. Now, aside from the signals, I also offer a video course with 20 different educational videos that teach you guys all of the same strategies that I personally use to profit. You guys are definitely going to want to check these out if you want to profit alongside next to me inside of the exclusive DIY investing community. You guys can join by clicking the invitation link in the description of this video, and there you're going to get access to my Discord server. Currently we have over 1,600 members and it's growing very, very quickly, so make sure you guys reserve your seat today before I close off all invitations. I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for the support. The channel's growing so fast and I'm just thankful to have you guys a part of this, profiting alongside next to me. This has been a dream come true to be able to do YouTube full time and just help mentor as many people through this. Now, this is a video that's going to be a little bit different from other ones in times past, but I know that you guys are going to find a ton of value inside of this. So, without further ado, let's jump right in the video today. Alright guys, so here we are taking a look at the S&P 500. Now this is an index for the top 500 stocks in the stock market. This is just kind of an average, almost like the total market cap or something, but this is the S&P 500. Now we're going to be taking a look at the S&P 500, we're going to take a look at Apple, we're going to take a look at Microsoft, and then we're going to take a look at Amazon. Now, what I want to talk to you guys about was the fact that I do believe that the stock market is currently very overvalued. Now, I'm not saying that this is the very top and we're just going to start crashing from here. In fact, I think it's a little bit more likely that we continue on in this parabolic movement a little higher before we actually do start to top out. But the thing about the stock market, guys, is this is a very overvalued asset class, and I do believe that we're going to see a lot of major corrections taking place over the next 5 to 10 years. Now, with that being said, that money has to leave somewhere, and I do strongly believe that it's going to enter commodities and enter that commodity market, and I think that Bitcoin is going to be a real driver of value when that happens. And the reason for that is because during market uncertainty, when nobody really knows what to expect, when you have instability in the dollar, when you have instability inside of the stock market, money leaves the stock market and it goes into safe havens. And safe havens up to this point has always been gold or silver. Oftentimes commodities such as oil will perform very well. Precious metals in general perform really well in market uncertainty. And now that we have Bitcoin, a form of digital gold, or what we kind of view Bitcoin as, I do believe that Bitcoin is going to be that next major asset class that's going to see a major rise when a lot of this old money from the stock market leaves and then enters some of these other asset classes. And so the S&P 500 has virtually been going on a tear for pretty much the duration of its existence. 1970s to the 80s, we had kind of this sideways consolidation, and then from the 80s until about the financial crisis, a little before the financial crisis, about 2000, we started to have a major correction. This correction was probably about a 60% drop would be my guess. This was a very scary time. This is also when gold started really rallying. Gold and silver made their rallies. And so this is kind of what I'm talking about, guys. Whenever the market's uncertain inside of the stock market and we start to see major stocks crashing, gold and silver and precious metals, commodities like oil actually perform very well. And this is exactly what happened. At the turn of the century of 2000, that was right when gold bottomed and actually went all the way upwards of about $1,900 per ounce. And so we saw a pretty big decline on the S&P 500, about a 50% correction. Now, after about 2002, we rallied back up, and then we met resistance once again, and then this was around the financial crisis. The world financial crisis saw us sell off significantly. There was a lot of fear in this time, and that was really the only major correction that we've had in the span of the S&P 500. Previously, up to this point, it's just basically been going straight up. Now, this takes us to current day valuations. If we go back and take a look at the S&P, we can see that before the last crash, we were basically going vertical. Everything was just going straight up. We had this kind of slow accumulation and the uptrend that was starting here. And then after this point, at about 1994, we really started to go parabolic. Now, the thing about this is the fact that 1994 until the early 2000s was actually very similar to what we're seeing currently. From the time of the financial crisis back in about 2009, we bottomed, and now we've basically just been on a tear ever since. And this is a very parabolic market, guys. To me, this cannot sustain itself. I think that we are due for a very big correction. Now, I have no idea how big that correction would get. I would assume it would be at least 50%, similar to what we saw back here in the days of the financial crisis, as well as some instability with war back in the 2000s. Now, I think that this very easily could be, I very easily think that we could see a bigger correction than even what we saw back down in here. We could see something more precedent towards the lines of the Great Depression. We could see a real bubble taking place and really starting to pop around this time. Now, for me personally, I think that we have more upside potential. And to be quite honest, I think that we very easily could hit about $5,000 in this SPX index, or the S&P 500, whatever you want to call it. I think we could still see a very parabolic run before we actually do top out of this. Now, this is going to be a very euphoric time. I would assume that Bitcoin's going to rally up. All of these are going to go up together. Now, it's possible we could top out a little bit earlier, but I think that this is going to be a very euphoric time. I mean, the markets have barely even pulled back. We've pretty much just gone straight up on this major trend line, and that's a very parabolic price action. Now, we'll have temporarily sell-offs back down to this trend line, but overall, I think it's likely that we're going to continue to go up in this very euphoric hype cycle. Now, this takes us to our next three charts on the list today, which is going to be Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon. These are some of the bigger tech stock companies that exist out there. Now, I want to talk to you guys about Apple because Apple is actually one of the bigger market caps that exist out there. Currently, its market cap's about 1.68 trillion, so it's very, very large market cap. Now, with that being said, guys, I think this is very overvalued. I mean, Apple went from about $150 a share back here in November, and we've basically doubled that, and it's only been a few months. We've basically doubled in price, doubled in market cap. That is a very parabolic move, and I think that we're going to continue to see this parabolic trend continuing to go up. Now, there's a couple things that I'm noticing here between Apple and Bitcoin, actually. Now, Bitcoin looks very much like Apple. Now, to me, I think that Apple is about right after this point. I think that this is where Apple just barely left, and we're just kind of starting that final euphoric hype cycle into this big extended 5-wave. But it looks very similar. I mean, we have these little leg ups, we're building momentum, we have short-term sell-offs as the parabolic trend gets steeper and steeper. And I think that we just barely entered that final mania event where everything's going to go insane inside of Apple's market cap. And let's actually take a look here, because we can see roughly the same sort of symmetries here. Now, if we go back in the day, we can see that we had this kind of sideways, we had this sideways consolidation, and then things really started going parabolic. Now, this looks a lot like Bitcoin, where we have these breakouts, we pull back, we break out again, we pull back, and we just kind of build up on these little stairs. And things get more and more parabolic, and I think that we just barely left into our final parabolic push here. And this is kind of what I was talking about with Bitcoin. I think that Bitcoin back in 2017, I think that this is what we have left inside of Apple. We're going to have a very extended push, very slight pullbacks. It's going to be very minuscule. Any pullbacks that we get, it's going to be light selling, and it's just going to be pure euphoria, because overall, this looks very similar in my opinion, where we kind of have the sideways consolidation that took place. The parabolic trend starts to actually take shape. We make these impulses, sell back down, impulse, sell down, and we make these little leg ups, or these little stair steps all the way up on this trend until finally we've built enough momentum and we just kind of shoot straight up into the air. And that's really what Apple reminds me of currently today. I mean, we had the sideways consolidation here. We've made bigger impulses, and these impulses continue to just build more and more momentum until finally I think that we just entered that mania phase where the markets are just going to skyrocket and Apple will see a lot more upside. And so to me, I think that we still have a lot more upside potential left inside of Apple, and we should see something along the lines of this, just going straight up parabolic. We could very easily see Apple hitting upwards about $500 per share before we kind of start to top out here, and then we crash all the way back down, right? And we could very easily see something along the lines of this, something like what happened inside of Bitcoin. We had a very big market crash. Now, I'm not saying that we have to consolidate sideways as long, but I do believe that we'll see something similar. After this big blow off top, we'll start to retrace. It'll be a very strong crash, probably about 60% drop would be my guess, before we do find any sort of strong support. And so that would take us to at least about right here, would be my guess. And then we could see some choppy action before making one more low. And my overall guess is that we would see Apple back around a midpoint, about a low point of about $100 per share. Just because this looks like the final mania phase that we're experiencing inside of Apple. I mean, what has Apple really done that has pushed market sentiment so high? I mean, they continue to release new iPhones, but overall there's really no groundbreaking technology that they're coming out with. They're pretty much just making the same model of phone every year, adding a couple things different, and now it's to the point where they're taking away things like the headphone jack or whatever. And so for me, guys, I don't see this as being sustainable by any means. This has been a very parabolic run inside of Apple for quite some time now, and there's no way that it can continue to actually play out like this. And so my guess is we just entered that final mania phase. We'll have one more major parabolic run, and when this thing tops out, that money has to go somewhere. And I do believe that Bitcoin is going to see a lot of that money enter its market instead, because the stock market, when it starts to top out, people are going to lose faith in the stock market. They're going to lose faith in the dollar's strength, and they're going to transition into commodities. And in my opinion, I think that we'll see gold, silver, oil, and Bitcoin really start to take up the bulk of that value. I mean, for Apple to go to $500 per share, you're actually looking at over $2 trillion in market cap. That's a lot of money that can potentially half. I mean, all Apple has to do is go to $250, and then it's only back down to about a $1 trillion market cap. And so that is a lot of money that can enter into these new commodities that we have, such as Bitcoin, such as gold, such as silver, maybe even oil. All of these other commodities are going to gain strength in the wake of a stock market crash. And so Apple looks to me like we're just rearing and ready to go for that final impulse up, that big mania phase, and then that should see us start to drop back down, similar to what we saw inside of Bitcoin. Big final impulse after we built momentum for so long on this parabolic trend. We really have that blow off top, and then we start to crash. Bitcoin crashed about 83%. Apple could very easily crash that low. An 83% correction from roughly 500 would put us roughly at the same sort of correction as what we saw inside of Bitcoin. And so I think that we'll see roughly a $500 Apple around the top of that cycle. Now next, this takes us to Microsoft. Microsoft has been one of the best performing stocks for a significant amount of time. Now to me, there's no way that this is sustainable, just like Apple. I mean, we've basically just gone straight up. We can very easily continue to go up is the thing. But in my opinion, it's more likely that we're ready for a crash and a bigger term correction inside of this market, something like we saw back in here. Now, this even wasn't a super huge correction. I would guess around 70 to 80% from high to low. Yeah, so about a 75% correction from high to low. And I think that we could see something upwards of about an 80% correction after the next blow off top. Now for me, let's go through and analyze my Elliott wave count with this so that we can kind of see exactly what I'm thinking as of right now. Now, based off of Elliott wave theory, I think that this was our one wave. After our one wave in about 1989, we ventured into our three wave. This was also around the dot-com bubble. We retraced, and then we have really that final five wave impulse back up. And I think that that's really where we're at currently, is the final five wave impulse. Now, this final five wave impulse can get very extended. I mean, already this is a very extended five wave. There's a lot of euphoria driving this market right now. A lot of people are very hyped about the stock market. You see Donald Trump constantly talking about how well stocks are performing. And I think that this is really just a ploy before we have a bigger term crash. And this, to me, is not sustainable. I mean, this is going basically vertical, very slight pullbacks. There's very few pullbacks at all. And we're pretty much just going straight up. And so I don't think that this is sustainable by any means. Eventually, we're going to top out right here. And then we're going to see a bigger term crash. Now, we very easily could go higher. I don't know how high. I'm not the person that's sitting here trying to predict exact tops because that's a good way to get wrecked. All I can say is if you're holding any of these stocks, now's probably not the time to be looking to enter into new positions. It's probably more likely that you take some profits and start to re-diversify into commodities. Commodities are going to be the ones that perform very well in the wake of market uncertainty. And so with Microsoft, I'm expecting to see something similar to kind of what happened in Bitcoin. I mean, we have these big parabolic runs, huge blow off tops. When the market goes basically vertical, straight up, that's the time where you want to be selling, and that's basically what it looks like we're inside of Microsoft. Now, Microsoft would do roughly the same thing as Apple. I think that we have a big correction all the way back down. I have no idea how high, but my guess is be close to about an 80% correction. 80% correction would take us back within previous support of the last move, and that would also behave nicely with Elliott wave theory, because if this is just a one wave and we correct back down, generally speaking, you find support between the 3 and the 4, and so that's would put us at about an 80% correction. My guess is we see anywhere from about a 60% to an 80% correction. That's probably where I would look to scale into positions inside of this market. But for me personally, guys, there's too much risk involved for me to want to take a position inside of Microsoft because it's just too parabolic. These things are going very, very parabolic. It's not very safe to do that. I mean, if you buy it today and it goes to $200 per share, you might make a decent profit, but you're only going to get about 20% compared to if it starts crashing, their downside potential is far greater than the upside potential, and so we just really need to be wary about that. Now, last up on the list is going to be Amazon. This is another stock that I think is very, very overvalued. We're basically just going straight up on this trend. I don't think that it's likely that we continue on in this for much longer. I think that we'll have a continued uptrend for a little while. Maybe the next year or two, stocks will continue to perform well. But Amazon right now is showing a little bit of resistance, and it shows that we very easily could be at the top right now. This one might be topping out prematurely compared to some of the other indices that we're looking at, or even some of the other stocks. And so we really need to pay attention as to what's happening currently. There's currently not a lot of fear inside of the stock market. Everybody's very hyped about the stock market. They continue to perform well. We have Donald Trump in office, and he's continuously been hyping up the stock market. But overall, guys, it seems to me like we are very, very close to a major correction. And this correction is going to be a lot bigger than a lot of people tend to think. And I think the reason for that is just because we've been due for one for so long. I mean, the government kind of did a cover-up with the financial crisis. Banks got bailed out. And so we haven't really had any repercussions from that point. Sure, we had the stock markets kind of take a hit over that time, but they've continued to outperform. We've basically just put a Band-Aid on the economic structure for America, and I think that we're going to really see a major correction come, and we have to make up for all of those failed attempts that we just covered up from the last cycle. Now, Amazon has been one that's performing very well ever since shortly after the internet bubble. We just kind of consolidated sideways for about 10 years' time, and then we started to actually break out. Now, from this point, we've gone vertical, basically straight up. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to top out right here and start dropping. It's possible. We could very easily go up for another big extension on this wave structure here, but overall, this is not looking like a very safe bet. In fact, it's far riskier to buy right now than it would be just to kind of scale out and then look to enter something that's a little bit cheaper like Bitcoin. Now, this is what I'm looking at for currently inside of Amazon. Overall, the trend has continued to get steeper and steeper. And really, we need to be weary of that, because as the trend continues to get steeper, the risk is much higher. And if you have positions in this and you're not looking to take profits, this thing could very easily turn on you. And then there goes 30% of your long-term portfolio over the course of a couple weeks. And so this is something to pay attention for. Now, to me, this isn't looking very good. We have a series of lower highs in here. Now, I'm not a stock market trader, and I'm not sitting here trying to predict the tops either. But we have 3 unsuccessful attempts to break higher. We have a couple major wicks that took place right here. This is a very ugly bearish chart pattern, candlestick pattern, I should say. And this is a smaller version of the same thing. And so this, to me, shows profit taking. We also had a number of these different stocks getting dumped around the top by Jeff Bezos' wife after their divorce. And that, I have no idea how much that could affect the market. But what I can say, guys, is I think that smart money is looking to scale out of this market at this point. We're so parabolic in this trend that I personally don't think it can continue to play out like we have up to this point. And I think it's much more reasonable that we aim to actually start taking profits in this time, because we really have no idea how sustainable this can be. To me, this is unsustainable. All I can speak is from what I've experienced inside of Bitcoin. But when Bitcoin goes vertical, that's when you want to be taking profits, because a big crash is coming. Now, to me, the stock market looks a lot like Bitcoin. Whether it's Apple, whether it's the S&P 500, whether it's Microsoft, or whether it's even Amazon, all of these look very overvalued, and I think it's much more likely that we're about to experience a major correction, and with that correction, a lot of that money is going to leave the stock market, and it's actually going to enter a lot of these other cryptocurrencies. So I just wanted to keep you guys aware as to what's happening amongst a different sort of asset class. I know I don't talk about this stuff very much, and the reason for that is because I'm primarily a cryptocurrency trader and investor. But with that being said, guys, I mean, if we start to really sell off here inside of these stocks, and we start to see, a 60 to an 80% drop in a lot of these, then I'm actually going to be looking to scale out a lot of my Bitcoin profits and cryptocurrency profits and deploy them into the undervalued stock market. Because at the end of the day, guys, these are very good companies. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, these are all very successful companies, and I would actually put faith that these continue to perform very well. And so I personally wouldn't be buying in this time, but what I can say is crypto looks very undervalued, and if we could see a kind of a topping out of the stock market, that money's going to be leaving that market, and it's going to be entering undervalued assets like Bitcoin. And that's how we could see a lot of new money entering Bitcoin's market, not only from institutional investors, but from the money leaving the stock market, institutions taking their profits in the stock market, and then just redeploying them into this undervalued asset like Bitcoin. So anyways, guys, this is the video I had for you. If you found this video helpful, always remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more updates. If you guys want more videos covering stocks and other sort of indices, whether it's commodities, whether it's stocks, anything, guys, just let me know, and I will look into covering them in a different video. With all that being said, guys, thank you all so much for the support. I will catch you in the next video. As always, peace out.